The Senate approved some of the most sweeping changes yet to Dodd-Frank, passing a bipartisan measure that eases rules on small and mid-sized banks. Now it heads back to the House, where lawmakers say that they want to tack on more provisions. The White House is signaling that the president will sign it. You've been talking about rolling back these regulations as being a critical part of the economic boost that we've seen, James. The critics of this bill say it could bring back unnecessary risk. Your thoughts?
I don't think it makes that big a difference either way. I think you got some good reform for smaller banks, less compliance nightmare, lower costs, but it fundamentally leaves this structure in place where the too big to fail banks and the government are in this kind of embrace. We think about this anniversary of Bear Stearns 10 years ago. That would be bailed out again. That's still going to be considered systemic under this system. And you got to ask why. Looking back now, why did the government bail out an investment bank that was the 17th largest firm in the country? We could have lived without it.
The Federal Reserve had to create off-balance sheet partnerships to help bail out a bank that was taken down by off-balance sheet risk.
Right.
It was the beginning of insanity in this country.
Dodd-Frank changes? Good for financial
as a small
services?
businessman who actually relies on bank funding and particularly the small banks are the ones that really stepped up 7 years ago, not the big ones. I'm going to say that this is probably as important for growth as the tax cuts, because you unleash the smaller banks, the ones that actually do the small business lending. That's where the growth comes from. That's where the jobs come from. And Dodd-Frank was the most destructive bill in terms of growth because of what it did to the small banks across the country. I think this is an incredibly important bill.
You own financials?
We do. We absolutely own financials.
And would you be buying more in terms of the financial services sector going into these changes being implemented?
It's been a great run, and we think there's a lot more ahead of it because we think the yield curve steepens back out.
Yeah, long runway there. All right, we'll talk more about that.